Cheers, Stephen. Thank you very much for all sticking it out to the end here. I wasn't sure this book was going to happen. About a month before it's due to be published, a certain well-known editor, Aaron, went into hospital. And I sent a little email sometime in mid-October saying, everything okay? Do you need help? Is there any support you need with the press? Do you want to push it back? Anything? No response. And there he was a month later. Book coming out. We're doing the launch early December. I think he had a headache and couldn't read that night online, but he did it. And I think his wife Emma helped out a lot and all that. And I'm just really grateful that he's doing all this. And I'm going to plug on his behalf. You may know, some of you already, that he's doing a fundraiser for the press. They've got the 4th birthday, is that right? Coming up in mid-April. There'll be a load of readings, recordings going out at some point from loads, I think it's 80 of poets and writers generally. So do support him if you can in any way. But here's some flavour of the book. It's going to be completely unrepresentative of the book. So sorry, don't buy it before you've tried it. Too short, too long. Meta. I used to think you had an impossibly long neck. So it made perfect sense when you turned into an ostrich. Men come twice a week to take your eggs, and one day you'll be nothing but meat to them. Your head in the sand, neck for the chopping. And one day I'll be dead, my bones ground down to join the desert sand, some thing of you still buried in me. Cherries. This was written on a Saturday. Walking from home to the bar on campus with Simon, we found ourselves stepping on cherry stones, not the hearts of atheists, as he once put it, but the real stuff. And we looked up, and the trees between the flats were as big as limes. That's an exaggeration. And there were several of them, and the urban through route, red spotting the green leaves, green pasting the beige bricks. I pulled down a branch, wondering who owned them. He thought they'd be rife with exhausts, but we picked 2 and they were a deep colour you could lose things in or find things, and we ate them and they were sweeter than we expected. On Tuesday, I saw a couple as I cycled home, pulling down the branches to taste the fruit. One was wearing cargo shorts, and the other lycra leggings. And I'm saying that not because it is important, but because I want you to think about what that means to you and what kind of image it brings into your mind. On Thursday, several people clustered under each tree, pulling down the branches and harvesting the fruit, gathering what they could in their pockets, or using teamwork to load up piles of cherries in their pouched sweatshirts. I nearly bumped into a man carrying a ladder as I walked by, and it was a very specifically rustic ladder. By Friday, the street was rammed with bodies, the trees torn, traffic queuing and howling, debris and fistfights smearing the road, people crabbing over each other to climb to the top of the body pile, children chewing the bark and babies, crawling along the pavement, trampled, their faces drooling a red juice, picking the stones from the ground and sucking them for the last drop of taste. The air symphonic with groaning and dying. The starving postie clutched at my ankle, pulled herself out of a pile of stones and tried to bite my bollocks off. Some of this actually happened, but as a metaphor, all of it is happening right now in the world. As you read this, or because you are reading this. the difference between a metaphor and an animal, the difference between us and animals, the difference between an end and stop, and the little words that join us to the world. When I hold up a mirror, I am covering myself with a veil, coating my tongue in silver until the last cherry tastes of myself. Scientists no longer believe that the green sea snail can take on the properties of photosynthetic plant cells when they eat them. Instead, like a camel, it digests these cells over months, even in darkness, subsisting on thought alone. Synthesis is a kind of coming together. The sea snail's synthesis is synthetic. To be synthetic is to say, I am not really in love. Is synthesis a kind of theft or a kind of eating? If you eat this poem, it tastes of snapshots. Sis, the sins we've committed don't even scratch this poem's crazy thesis. I'm terrible at titles too. And this one is not very catchily titled at all, but a small note, just a reminder that the chemical symbol for sulfur is S, and the other note is that once we hit over 2 degrees warming, we will start to see sulfur in the air's composition. Lightning storm at sea, seen from Skla, 22nd September 2016, around 2200. Recollected 1410-16 to 1610-16 with interjecting thoughts. Not knowing where to begin doesn't mean don't begin but get going. So many things I could be doing. You might say the words can't be taken right out of some poor mug's gob, but the breath can be stolen. But the breath can be stolen, and words swept into a droughted place without permission or punctuation, just because a person's lungs have been so full, their voice freely cast across uninhabited valleys, like one day, let's say, the breath goes out all at once, never comes back. They know what they've lost, and say loudly, fuck all those others. Others! They've lived without breath. She's slowing now. Without breath for their whole lives. What is it? What is it to then have less air? In, out, in. Subtraction, thus. I wanted to say something against lightning and love, to strike out that adage of being in love. You know what? We were on the roof and the stars marshalled. Up a fleet of stories and symbols, gunshots flared over the ridge, and more flashes we came to see as storm. That love was, witnessing, being left breathless, incomprehensible, carrying words. I had no air then. For you, I found some, would spend that last breathable composition. I watched a NASA video of carbon and dioxide releases across a single breathable year. The colours were breathtaking. Like watching a clear plastic bag drawn down slow. Finding a child's blue body centred in a room you only left for a few thousand years to go wrong. Come back to nothing left to breathe. Percentage N2, percentage O2, percentage CO2, percentage NO2, percentage S. All of it is toxic, outside of a narrow margin. Permission to speak, parts per million, freely denied. Something whispered in the gaps between in, out, in, subtract, us, substrate. What air do rocks need to live? I listened to a short film narrated by George Monbiot about the wolves of Yellowstone, seeing what happened when you remove the deer, how they change the rivers, the whole system. Tropic shifts. Imagine what would happen if you removed the humans. No one struck by lightning or love. No one to write you love letters. No one to read my words when there's no air to breathe with, and all these words so easy to forget. Love is the whole storm, not the bolt. Near, far, it doesn't matter, as long as there's breath, the whole duration of it. And us, let's try not to be terrified of everything but each other.